Turkish and Syrian troops are just hundreds of meters away from each other as both sides move closer to their border. The US says Syria is raising the potential of border clashes after its recent military action there. Just what message is President Bashar al-Assad trying to convey? And is this enough to push Turkey into changing its rhetoric with its neighbour? This is Inside Story. And welcome to the programme. I'm Jane Dutton. Syrian troops moved dangerously close to the Turkish border on Friday, where many Syrians have set up makeshift camps fleeing the violence. And it appears that this has further inflamed tensions between the neighbours. Anita McNaught has a story from Hatay province.
This was the day the Syrian military showed its face to Turkey. Less than a kilometre away from the border, soldiers moved through the forest and farmland, while military vehicles took positions around the back of the Syrian village of Khirbet el-Juz. Inside the village, unconfirmed reports of security services taking control, gunfire, arrests and the destruction of houses. None of this visible from the Turkey side. But the effect on the Syrian refugees camped along the Turkish border was immediate. They ran to Turkey for help, and Turkey took them to safety.
There is an extraordinary situation in Syria at the moment, and we have guests here. Today 600 people crossed the border to Turkey.
This tower inside Syria had for days been flying a Turkish flag as a gesture of thanks. Now a Syrian flag and soldiers have replaced it. There's been much speculation about what Turkey would do if the Syrian military showed up on the border. The answer so far is nothing. With the refugees unharmed and not a shot fired in Turkey's direction, Turkey's official policy this week is we do not tell other countries how to design their houses. But the fire escape from that house has been locked shut. For Syrians in the northwest, this was the easiest route to safety. Now it no longer exists. Anita McNaught, Al Jazeera, Guvechi on the Turkey-Syria border.
Well, Turkey's Foreign Minister Ahmed Davutoglu expressed concern at the situation, stressing that anyone who fled to Turkey is a civilian. US Secretary of State Hillary Clinton also voiced her opinion about the behaviour of Syrian troops.
We are closely monitoring the situation in Syria and in neighbouring countries, and it is further example of the lengths to which President Assad's regime will go to repress the people of Syria, rather than actually working in a collaborative way to try to resolve the legitimate concerns of the Syrian people. And it just is very clear to us that unless the Syrian forces immediately end their attacks and their provocations that are not only now affecting their own citizens but endangering the potential of border clashes, then we're going to see an escalation of conflict in the area.
Well, to discuss this further, I'm joined by three guests. From Ankara, Yusuf Canley, columnist for Hurriyet Daily News. Canley has written extensively on the Syrian-Turkey relations and the impact of Syrian military operations on the border. From Manchester, Anas al-Abdah, chairman of the Syrian Movement for Justice and Development. And joining us on the line from Damascus, Tabet Salam, political commentator. Mr. Canley, what are we looking at here? What do you think Syria is up to, massing its troops along its border with Turkey?
Thank God it appears that latest reports indicate that Syria, now not yet withdrawn its troops on the border with Turkey, has taken them back about 400 meters.
Yes, but why did it go there in the first place?
Visible. Apparently, it's just a show of force, which was unfortunate, of course, on the part of the Damascus regime, because Turkey is not a hostile country to Syria. All Turkey wants is, all Turkey tried to do was to make clear to Damascus that it will not tolerate mass violation of human rights in front of its eyes.
Mr. Abdah, what do you think Syria is doing with this movement along Turkish borders?
Well, I think the Syrian regime is trying its best to stop the flow of refugees to the north into Turkey, because simply these refugees are telling the whole world what's been happening in the northern Syria, and to a certain extent what's been happening in Syria for the past 3 months. Also, they are trying to terrorize the population in order to prevent them from resisting and from demonstrating against the Syrian regime. The refugees have already told many news organizations, the international community, and many human rights organizations about what's been happening, and that is, that has given the chance to these organizations for documenting war crime cases. I mean, all of this is bad news to the Syrian regime. This is why they are actively working in the northern region in order to prevent more and more refugees crossing and telling their stories.
Do you agree with that, Mr. Salem?
Well, I do agree, of course. We have to admit that the regime here was very, let's say, unprofessional in handling the whole issue of the revolt which started in Syria 3 months ago. What's happening on the Turkish-Syrian borders is just another evidence that they were really amateur in dealing with the whole issue, as I said. Of course, the idea, and this is not the duty of the politicians, that is the army, is, as your gentleman, your guest from London has said, the army's duty is to put an end to the influx or the movement of the Syrian civilians into Turkey. It created a political problem for the regime, and of course, at the same time, maybe they are just warning they will not tolerate any further activities in the cities near that location where the refugees are gathering. So this is the old explanation for what has happened.
Okay, Mr. Canley, do you think that this might be seen as a move to divert attention, what's happening elsewhere in the country, similar to what we saw at the beginning of June when Syria moved some of its people into the Golan Heights?
That might be one of the reasons behind these tactical moves on the border. But don't forget, as your reporters from the region might have reported already, there is an influx of refugees from Syria into Turkey. Hundreds are coming every day, and small pockets of refugees are going back as well. And those returning refugees are mostly men who drop their wives and kids to Turkey, to the camps in Turkey, and going back to Iran to join the resistance, to Syria to join back the resistance. This shows that things might get worse in Syria in the days and weeks ahead. And I don't understand why the Syrian authorities, who apparently are very much unprepared to such an increase in civilian mobility or civilian disobedience, are really losing control and engaging in some nasty actions.
Yeah, do you think that's why they're taking some rather drastic action? Excuse me jumping in. I mean, we've seen Syrian troops surrounding a makeshift refugee camp in Kirbet al-Juz. I mean, we hear stories of indiscriminate firing at people who are trying to run away. Do you think this is a sign of increasing desperation?
It is indeed, because it appears that particularly the intelligence units of Syria are totally unprepared and unskilled to cope with the increased activity of the civilian population. This is not a typical Syrian population which was obeying whatever the order issued by the central government. More and more people are demanding rights and freedoms, and more volatility is seen in the country. This is something that the established apparatus in Syria is just unable to cope with.
But again,
and we are seeing actions of frustration.
But again, and I'll throw this to Mr. al-Abdah, I mean, is this why you think that Syria is making this rather what has been seen as provocative action? Hillary Clinton certainly says that this is raising the potential of border clashes. That's when Syria moved some of its troops towards the border. Do you think that is to divert away from what's happening in the country, the fact that Syria is not capable, as our previous guest said, of dealing with that human exit rather?
I think this is a typical measure by the Syrian regime to export its problems through other means, like what they did in the case of Golan Heights by sending Palestinians to demonstrate there and to be killed by Israeli soldiers. In the same way they are doing this in the northern region as well, by trying to prevent refugees from crossing over to Turkey, and at the same time trying to also impose some kind of new conditions on the northern borders. And I think what we've seen is yesterday the conversation between the Turkish foreign minister and the Syrian foreign minister reflects the fact that this is one of the reasons why the Syrians are doing it, in order to impose some kind of dialogue with the Turkish part. And this is what happened today when the Turkish foreign ministry recalled the Syrian ambassador in Turkey in order to talk about what's happening on the borders. So this is definitely one of the reasons. But I would say that, in my view, the main purpose is to show that the Syrian state and the Syrian regime is in control of the whole country, and at the same time to prevent more and more refugees crossing over and creating more and more pressure on the regime regarding what's been happening inside Syria. And I would like to to say that refugees are not only from one side. They're not only from the northern region. They are coming from various regions in Syria.
Okay, Mr. Salem, do you think Turkey has been pretty withdrawn up until now? Do you think that they could possibly be provoked now to call for some sort of international condemnation of what's happening in Syria?
Let me tell you, throughout your questions regarding the similarity between what happened in the Golan Heights and what's happening now in Turkey, I think the cases are completely differently tackled.
Why is that?
Maybe there was a political objective in sending people into the occupied Golan Heights to be used politically to say, hey, look, we are defending our cause, etc., etc. But on the northern border...
Yes, but they were hardly being provoked by Israel at that stage. I mean, while this was happening, there were atrocities being committed in Homs.
Yes, of course. But no, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that this has been used as political objective. It's not genuinely serious about sending people into the Golan Heights. While regarding what's happening in the north, the Syrians are really embarrassed to see their own people leaving, because the problem is becoming bigger and bigger for them. So they're trying by all means to bring the people inside, into the country, back again to their homes. But the idea is that the image they got maybe made it a bit difficult to convince the people to come back. Again, I think some political circles are using the situation to be used for pressuring the regime. We have to admit this. Of course, we cannot deny that Turkey and the United States and also Israel are allies in the NATO, one way or another. And what Mrs. Clinton has said shows clearly and evidently that the Washington and the NATO are trying to benefit by what's happening. Can't deny that at all. Of course, there is a humanitarian issue. The killing is condemned. Deporting the people from their homes is condemned. But again, this shouldn't be used as neither by the Syrians or by the Americans.
Okay, so Mr. Canley, who do you think is going to take the initiative then? I mean, it's only Turkey that will be able to take the initiative. Surely when Turkey moves, the other countries will follow.
Yeah, but we have to make one thing very clear here. Egypt was far different than Libya for Turkey. Libya was far different than Syria for Turkey. And now Syria is different than all others for Turkey. In Egypt, we had business relations, we have historical cultural relations, but we didn't have much economic investment there. We didn't have much people there. Therefore, it was not our direct security under threat or our people's security. In Libya, we had 25,000 people. Therefore, our primary agenda was to take them out of Libya. Then to safeguard as much as possible the Turkish investments there. With Syria, however, we have a huge borderline. We have a huge relationship between our people and the Syrian people. The cultural, historical relations, security dimension. If this all going on cannot be resolved by the Syrian regime or by Syria itself, by changing its regime or through reforms, either way, this will have an explosive follower on Turkey. That's why Turkey is very much against, so far, against an international action on Syria. It has been trying to do its best to contain this problem within Syria. If international community engages in any way in this Syrian problem, there will be a spillover effect on Turkey as well.
And what is Turkey so worried about?
That is why
it concerned
Turkey has been constraining itself.
Is Turkey concerned that if there is some sort of regime change in Syria, if Syria finally falls apart, that it'll affect its relations with the PKK, the Kurdistan Workers' Party?
You know, it has multi-dimensions. I mean, one is, of course, the Kurdish problem, the PKK connection. The other is the Alawite-Sunni problem. What will be the outcome of a sectoral civil war in Syria?
Yeah, but I'm talking about Turkey's concerns here. I mean, surely Turkey's worried about what will happen to the Kurds and the problem that you're facing within your country.
That is why Turkey prefers to contain.
Okay, let's put that to Mr. al-Abdah. I mean, do you think that's something that Turkey should be worrying about, the fact that Syria will no longer be able to keep control of the Kurdish population?
Well, I mean, this is definitely part of the concerns that Turkey has, and which is legitimate concerns. As we know, PKK has been fighting the Turkish government for more than 20 years, and it's been influenced primarily by the Syrian regime. So there is this concern, which we appreciate it. However, I think it is in the interest of Turkey that there is a swift transfer into a new order in Syria. It is in the interest of Turkey and the whole region as well. Turkey will not benefit if there is any insecurity or instability in Syria. So I think Turkey should start taking a leading role in basically influencing the events in Syria and influencing a swift transfer into a new regime. And I think this will be
Syria's not going to be listening, is it? I mean,
Turkey.
Syria's already said, stop interfering, don't try and impose reforms on us. No, we're not going to get rid of President Assad's brother, as you've called on us to do. So Syria's not going to be listening to Turkey anymore, is it?
Well, I mean, Turkey can help a lot in terms of galvanizing the regional powers and the international community in the Security Council to issue a condemnation against the Syrian regime. And that in itself will focus the mind of the Syrian regime, and they will start giving in to the Syrian opposition and also to the Syrian people. I think this is very important. But my worry is that if Turkey is still relying on the possibility of reform, they will wait for a long time and nothing will happen, and the situation will deteriorate even more and more, and Turkey will stand to lose more than any other neighbouring country in this conflict.
Mr. Kanli, do you think Turkey will call for some type of international condemnation? We've seen some moves by the EU, some sanctions imposed, but really, as far as sanctions are concerned and the EU and its trading power with Syria, it doesn't have much clout, does it?
excluding military option, perhaps Turkey might galvanize international support to pressure perhaps a peaceful transfer of power in Syria. Or,
that's not going to happen, though, is it?
Other speakers are so skeptic about to force the Bashar al-Assad regime to undertake some really biting and painful reforms there.
But that's, again, not going to happen, is it?
The end result, if that's not going to happen, which we will see, I mean, in days and weeks ahead, I'm afraid Turkey will have to take some very painful decisions.
Okay, and tell us what you think there might be.
I hope that will not include military unilateral intervention.
Mr. al-Abdah, what do you think those painful decisions could be if it's excluding military intervention?
I think Erdogan already mentioned it to Bashar before, that, you know, in case the Syrian regime carried on with its murderous measures against the northern region, Turkey will probably establish what we call safe havens in northern Syria in order to protect the Syrian population and also to prevent hundreds of thousands of refugees crossing over to Turkey.
Yes, I believe if reports are correct, that's what they're doing right now, actually.
Yeah, and I think this is why I'm saying that Turkey has a very limited time to decide, and you know, it is decision time for the Turkish leadership. You know, the Syrian regime will not reform. It will not. The last speech was very clear about that, and the Turkish side has to really decide if it's going to protect its interests both inside and outside Turkey.
Because the clock is certainly ticking for the Syrian leadership, isn't it? I mean, the EU has targeted now Iran in the form of targeting 3 individuals belonging to the Revolutionary Guards.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, it is a clear indication from the international community that they are fed up with Bashar al-Assad and his empty promises. Now I think Turkey has really to take a bold move in this. The whole international community has a great respect and a great confidence in the Turkish role. Also, we are in the Syrian opposition. We have a lot of, you know, respect, and the Syrian population in general have a lot of respect for the for the Turkish role in this. And I think the sooner the Turkish leadership takes a very clear move on this, the better for both sides.
So no pressure on Turkey then, Mr. Canley, because, I mean, geopolitically, this region is incredibly important, more so if you want to make comparisons than Libya.
Of course, this so-called Arab Spring, blowing very quite strong in the Arab Street, is of great concern and great change for us as well, because Turkey is going through a huge and massive transformation that started some while ago, and we are perhaps left behind the bulk of it already. I mean, transformation of Turkey from a military tutelage to a more democratic, towards becoming a more democratic country. There are many of us, including myself, have the fear that now we are coming more and more under the tutelage of a very strong political leader and political party, and being diverted from democracy ourselves. But still, compared to the Arab Street, Turkey is democracy far ahead. Yet, we have, for example, as you must be seeing nowadays, the electoral board banning a Kurdish deputy, some secular opponents of the government who are elected deputy in the last election but are not allowed to parliament. Therefore, it's not only the Arab Street which is crying for reform and progress and more democracy. Turkey is itself as well crying for democracy and more justice, more reforms.
I'm sorry, we're going to have to leave it there, Mr. Yusuf Khanli, because we run out of time. Thank you for joining us. Also, Mr. Anas al-Abdah and Tabet Salam, who we had to lose because of that bad audio. Sorry about that. And, of course, thank you so much for joining us on this edition of Inside Story. We welcome your comments and suggestions. Please email them to us at insidestory@aljazeera.net. From me and the team, goodbye.